Good afternoon. My name is Dottie Schindlinger, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you here today for a brief webinar to spend a little bit of time with my colleague Cheryl Dombey talking about how you can use your Board Docs service to enhance strategic collaboration, and in particular, how you can use Board Docs to do strategic goal tracking for your district. So just to give a little bit of housekeeping announcements before we get started with the webinar, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl. This is going to be a 30-minute webinar, so we're keeping it very brief, but we will be providing both a little bit of information through a slide deck as well as through a live demonstration of the platform. We are recording the session, so we'll be able to make that recording available to you after the session along with the slide deck. And you will remain muted. All the phone lines have been muted for the sake of the recording. But if you'd like to ask questions, and we very much encourage you to do so, all you have to do is send your question through the GoToWebinar control panel. On the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a little section that says questions and answers. You just type your question in. I will see those flash across the screen, and I'll be able to pose those to Cheryl as we go through the presentation. If at any time you need any assistance with anything, you can also send me a chat message using the chat window in the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll be happy to connect with you separately and get you whatever assistance that you need. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl, and she's going to give us just a little bit of an introduction to some of the ways that school districts that are using Board Docs are using this software to manage their strategic goals, and some of the pressures that are, kind of having them do that work. So Cheryl, do you want to take it from here?
Hi, thank you, Dottie. This is Cheryl, and I work for Board Docs. Just a little history on myself. I previously worked in public education for 30 years. We brought Board Docs into our district in 2009, and it really changed the way we did business. The strategic goals piece is very important to boards, of course. I was a board's clerk, and what I would see happen typically with a board is we would have new board members in January. The year goes by so fast because the new board members are starting their organizational meeting in January. Well, the school year is already half gone by then. So when they start their goals in January, the new board members come on, they might decide on how they're going to set their goals for the year. February comes and goes, the end of the school year is here and gone, summer's here. By December, it's like, hey, what did we do? How did we do it? How far are we along with the goals that we set originally in January? So what we found is, by using a tool like Board Docs, when the board members come in once a month and have their board meeting and do their work, the work that they're approving that the superintendent and administration puts in front of them can be connected directly to the goals that they've set out in January. So at the end of the year, what happens is they can take a look and see where all the work that they've done throughout the year in their board meetings have been connected to the goals that they set forth in January. So one of the things also to use it for is to track legislation requirements that the board might be facing for that particular year. And then they can report, and we can make it link the goals of the board to the administrative's work and make that transparent to the community. Okay, so Dottie, can you switch to the next slide there? Great. So a lot of times administrators are so busy in that month getting ready for that board meeting, the superintendent, all that board's work, it's hard to, organize that in a way that holds their staff and cabinet accountable for the board's goals, and to try to organize that is very difficult. And of course, the public's always engaged in hoping that those board goals are met. So what I can show you on my screen, Dottie, I don't know if you can hand that over to me. Okay, let's see here. So with Board Docs here, I'm going to show you our software here where you can attach agenda items to the board's goals. So start thinking about things as strategic goals in a traditional way. Of course, we have strategic goals. So the board might set out, the first goal might be to engage the community or to provide a safe and healthy school environment for students. So that's kind of a traditional goals that a board would set. But also the goal tracking feature in board docs you can use to track legislation. So if there's a particular legislation that's coming through that the board needs to be aware of, and for example, in California, there's a Brown Act where there's different transparency rules, things are amending and changing a lot. And if they want to track those things and how the administration is complying to that, you can use that feature, the strategic goals feature, to track legislation. Another example is the audit committee. So there's a financial audit every year. We might want to consider a goal to attach those items that the auditors will be looking at in that, and I'm using the word goal, but just consider it a filing drawer where all those documents can be looked at in one place. So we have the strategic goals traditionally, how you would think of them, and then maybe start thinking of the strategic goal feature in board docs to use for filing drawers and organizing documents, maybe for the fiscal year audit, maybe for a building project. So if you have a building project going on and you want all the work that the board approves to be in one drawer, so you can come in here and say, I want to look at all the work and all the documents that the board approved for the building of the new elementary school. You can use the strategic goal feature to do that as well. Another area, it would be, we found this out recently, and I'll show you, which I thought this was a fantastic idea. In the library, you can feature your goals on the feature page where your community can come in here and see them. But you can also have your strategic goals in the library, and that's where you create them. To come in and say, in our purchasing department, we want to put all the contracts that were approved by the board in one filing drawer. And again, in board docs, we would consider that a goal, strategic goal. And once you start approving during the meetings those contracts that were up for bid, you can start documenting that. So when the purchasing department says, I want to see all the contracts that were approved by the board in the last year, they can come here and see a report on that. And if it was an action item, if it was a report, they can find the one they want, they can go to it, and then they can look to see how that item was approved and the information and the documentation behind that. Another area that we see the strategic goals used for is numbered resolutions. So in school districts, there are lots of things in the agenda. So let's go to an agenda. So a typical meeting would be call to order. You would have your flag salute, maybe some reporting. But not all these are action items that need to be numbered. So in the items that would call for the board's action and maybe a numbered resolution to follow, you could attach the goal of action items of the board, and then you could have one file cabinet in board docs where you could go and look at all those agenda items that were numbered and action items for the board. Again, similar to legislative tracking, you could track the action items for that year. We've seen LCAP goals in California be tracked that way. Performance reviews, so performance audits that the community might be interested in. If a performance audit group comes in and says, gee, you really need to work on community engagement, you can set that up as a goal. What we advise to do, a best practice, is to set just a summary in the public content area here and describe the goal and what you want to accomplish, but also set a matrix of what it looks like to be 100% complete. So you might start out as a goal to engage the community, but you also want to put some definite action items down and a matrix of milestones. So when A, B, and C have been done, now we're 20% done with that goal. So that way you know and have a measurable matrix in place, and you can move that percentage indicator, the performance indicator. So when you're 75% done, you know that you've completed several things on your list. Again, that reporting enters down here at the bottom.
Hey, Cheryl, this is Dottie.
Yeah.
Would you be able to take a question at this point in time? I think it's kind of relevant to what you're showing. So one of the questions to ask is about when you're putting in the information about the goals and you're trying to update, how far you are along with meeting that particular goal. The question is whether or not you can attach additional things to that goal. So for example, if you've got supporting materials or reports or other items that you want to cross-reference and link to, how would you go about doing that?
So the items that you set forth in a goal would be in each agenda item. So when you're in a particular agenda item that you're creating for the board's approval that month, as you go and create that agenda item for approval, you would click on the goal feature and you could scroll down here and then attach those goals to that one particular agenda item. Additionally,
so then it's attaching automatically, is what you're saying.
Correct.
So basically, once you gotcha. Okay, I think that answers the question. But the person who asked the question, if that didn't quite get you where you need to be, let me know. we can have Cheryl show us a little bit more. I think they were just interested to know how you make sure if you are in the agenda, you can see the goal, and then if you're in the goal, you can see the agenda. I think they were looking for that cross correlation.
Okay, excellent. So when you're in that specific agenda item, when you're creating it, you can edit it in here and then attach as many goals as you want. So you can attach more than one goal to that particular agenda item and then save. And so then what you were saying is when you go down to this goal, let's see here. You can then, it starts to report on the date of the meeting that something happened on this goal, the title of what the agenda item was, if it was an action item or not, and if the motion carried or did not. Could just be a report. So I think what the person was asking for is when you are in that specific strategic goal, you can click right on that item and it will take you back to the meeting that it was approved in or that it was discussed in, and then all the documentation will be right here in that item, in that agenda.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can I ask one quick little follow-up question there? So, and this is actually something I'm asking you, so because I'm curious to know. You've worked with so many of our schools, and even with the school district that you were working with for so many years. Is it common for the school districts to kind of set up a certain number of items that have to be completed, and then as they complete those items, that counts as, let's say, 5% or 10% of completion of the goal? How do they typically measure that completion bar? You know what I mean? So do they divide it into 10 items, and then as they complete each one, it's 10% of the goal completion? Or how do they go about assessing how far they are on completing a specific goal?
Yeah, I think that's a part of the challenge for a board. So they're usually in the district once or twice a month, where the administration is in there 40 hours a week, if not more, usually more. So when the board sets a goal for the district, it's really hard to measure that and to say, well, we would like more community engagement. Well, what does that mean? A lot of times board members that I've experienced will set that up they'll get board consent on what the agenda item or the strategic goal items that they want to accomplish that year. But then they'll take them to the committee meetings. So for example, if they want to reduce the budget by 10%, they'll take that to the finance committee of the board, and then they'll set those action items within that committee. And but again, it's very hard to measure and to report out on. What we do here in Board Docs is take that any particular goal or specific wish of the board, and in the administration's work, they can attach it very easily to the goals that they set forth for that school year. So you're creating an agenda anyways. This just really helps to take that and organize it in a way that's easy to connect to the board's goals, the work of the administration that the board is approving, and then make it available to the public in a real organized way, so they can come in here and basically open a file cabinet of things. What the board said that they were going to reduce the operating budget by 10%. How did they do that? They can come here and look at this report, and each time that the board either spoke about the item, acted on the item, had a presentation, it starts gathering that information down here. What we found as well as administration likes that, because at the end of the year, when the superintendent is having their evaluation, they can come right in here very easily. They don't have to go and create a lot of reports and a lot of handouts and things like that. They can simply go in here, and the work of their cabinet, their administration, has made the board successful in their goals. And it's a real easy reporting tool at the end of the year to go back and see, this is what we said we were going to do. This is how many times we talked about it. We've connected reports, minutes, any kind of action that comes to the board from the administration that connects to that goal. You can report out on it right here in a very simple way.
Cheryl, would you mind taking another question?
Be happy to.
So we had a good question come in. So one of our attendees is in a school district that is using Board Docs to manage the policy side of their work, but they're not using it for the board meetings at this time. And the question was whether or not they would also be able to use the strategic goal tracking along with the policy services that they have, or what would they need to do to have that work?
Yeah, so we have a policy, just a standalone policy that districts can use. This, what I'm showing you now, is Pro, Board Docs Pro, that incorporates the policy tab as well as the library tab where the strategic goals are. So they would, if they were interested in this, we can contact them, and it would, they would be looking at Board Docs Pro for that strategic goals feature here.
And if they decided to go that route, would they have to redo anything with policies, or would it just automatically transfer over?
No, it's really just a simple upgrade into Pro. So they're using currently Board Docs PL, and they can upgrade to Board Docs Pro, which would add the agendas, the meetings, the minutes, and the strategic goals, as well as a workflow to that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to show quickly here was in the strategic goals, the superintendent can also build goals, and that he can connect things. For example, when he's tasked with building community trust, he can go in here and connect things to the agenda as well that he might want to talk about in his evaluation. These goals can be public or private. So you can turn it to private, and then the superintendent can connect those things that he wants to highlight in his evaluation to those particular goals, and maybe even go over those goals with his cabinet to do their evaluations. So like, again, it's a really interactive tool that connects the work that you do to goals that you set forth in a very organized way. Any other questions there, Dottie?
Not right at the moment, but I think you can go ahead and keep going. I think do you want me to go back to the slide deck at this point, or do you want to just kind of keep going through showing some of the features?
No, I can go through here and show another, like I did talk about the contracts and the bids, which I think was a really creative way for to organize all the contracts and awards that are approved by the board. I think another avenue to take in here, so community colleges use this for their accreditation. So sometimes they want to specifically touch on 4 or 5 different things, where when the board comes in to look at their accreditation standards, they can connect the work that they do in a very easy way to this goal, so they can report out very easily on how they are reaching their accreditation standards. So once a year, again, for a financial audit, there might be certain things that maybe in the previous year that you had a finding on, or that you want to focus on to show the auditors that you are connecting with what has been asked of the district. And you can connect to like a fiscal year audit finding, or if you just have some recommendations on how to improve some processes for a financial audit, you can do that. And again, you can make it private. You don't have to make it public. You can make it private. You can release and expire board goals. And again, like I say, goals, but you can have it to be just a specific area where those things are captured. Right in here is where you decide how far you are with the particular goal, and setting those matrix and standards in. You can put those in the public content area, where you would say, here's the action items we're taking, and at each step of the way, what does it mean to be 30% done, 50% done, etc. Or you can put that in an area, in the administrative content area, where your administration sees that. You don't have to have that out for the public to see, but we really do recommend that you have some milestones in place. Otherwise, when you're adjusting the performance indicator value, you're going to have a hard time saying, yes, we're 50% done, because you don't know really what that looks like. A lot of times the board and the administration can work on that together, and to incorporate that into the goal is a very worthwhile, we feel.
Cheryl, I do have another question if you are ready.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is actually a question again from me. I hope you don't mind, but there was a question I was chatting back and forth with someone about offline, and just something specific to their school district. It reminded me of something I wanted to ask you, which is, so the board that I serve on, we are in the process of going through strategic planning, and on Wednesday night we're going to have a big town hall meeting. And so in preparation for that town hall, we wanted to communicate out to the members of our community the information, the background information leading up to some of the decisions that we'll make around the strategic goals. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how school districts might use this to do that kind of communication with the community at large. How could they use this to kind of articulate what's going to be going into the strategic plan as they're getting ready to put that together?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great feature in board docs is, once you have that goal prepared, you have your matrix in place, so you know how you gauge the tasks and what percentage you are done. We have a share button. Now, in this share button, you can have email, but you can also have your Facebook page connected to it, your Twitter page. So when you have that goal done, you can tweet out on it to your community that here is a goal that you're putting in place. It connects the link of this particular item in that tweet, so that when your community sees that, they can connect on that, takes them right into Board Docs, shows them, again, what you're doing for that particular goal, the matrix that you've set, and then the actual reporting out on it as it goes. Board members also can take notes on each particular goal based on their sign-on, the board member sign-on. They can go in and take a little sticky note to that goal. So if they want to let themselves know, let's see, follow up report after first quarter. When they save that, based on their sign-on, they'll know when they sign on here, they'll know that they have a little note on that, and they can go in here and follow up on that.
That's great. Thank you. So we do have a couple questions coming in from folks that I think are using different versions of Board Docs. And so I wanted to just ask if you could address if someone is using the LT version, is this something that's available to them, or do they have to upgrade, and what would be involved in upgrading? Would you mind addressing that a little bit?
Yeah, so this feature is in Board Docs Pro. If you're using LT, again, similar to PL, you can upgrade to Pro, and you can just let us know. We can send out a follow-up email, and we're happy to give you a demonstration of all the benefits of Pro. LT is a great tool, mostly for smaller districts. When you get into Pro, it's more of a full board management tool. So connecting these strategic goals and really using tools that engage the community, the administration, and connect all the areas of the board's work, and really using that in an interactive way. And again, we're happy to show, to connect with the people that are using LT and that might be interested in looking at moving more towards Pro. It's a very easy upgrade process.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I guess just the last thing that I would ask would be, can you give those that are on the phone a little bit of an indication of how hard this is to learn how to do? So if you've not used the system in this way before, you've not used it to track goals or to cross-reference agenda items and goals, how much training is involved? And can you talk a little bit about the implementation process?
Yeah, so anybody that would already have Board Docs would know how to create an agenda item. And in doing so, when you edit that item in Pro version, you would have just a category right here that you would click on. You build the goals in the back end of Board Docs, and we would help you, train you to do that. Very simple process. And so when you're creating your agenda itself and you're in a particular agenda item, it's as easy as clicking on what you've already created as your goals and then saving that to that particular item. That's as simple as it is.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions at this time, so I do want to just take a couple minutes to wrap up and just say that I want to say thank you so much for everyone who attended. Hopefully, if this is something that you currently do not have available in your Board Doc service, hopefully this has piqued your curiosity. We'd love to take the time to share with you how you can upgrade and how you can get access to these features that Cheryl's been showing you. Cheryl, I want to say thank you so much for providing just a really excellent walkthrough of how this works and the power of this and how it can really be so helpful to school districts in communicating their strategic goals. And I want to thank everybody who attended the webinar today. You asked some really great questions. As we mentioned, we did record the session. We'll be sending out the follow-up information along with a link to the recording and the slide deck from earlier in the presentation. And then at any time, if you have questions for Cheryl or for Board Docs generally, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get your feedback. And thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. Cheryl, thank you so much. You were just terrific.
Great. Thank you, Dottie. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too, everybody. Have a great week. Take care.